Hello everyone and welcome to this World vs. World and PvP Reaper guide. I'm Hollts, I'm the guy that plays a shit ton of Reaper. This is definitely my favorite class to play. I'm gonna be going over primarily my World vs. World roaming build, but I think a lot of just anyone playing Necromancer could learn a lot from this. You should see a timetable show up right around now, showing the times in this video, at which I will be talking about all the different aspects of this build. But first, oh wait, let me get my food. First, let's go over the stats. So I have 2.4k power, 1500 toughness, 50% critical chance, 200% critical damage, 25k HP, 26% boon duration, so pretty well balanced. You want around 50% critical chance because this trait, Death Perception, will give you the other 50% in Shroud, so you really do not want to go over that 50%. In this build, I took primarily Berserker and Marauder stats with Runes of Durability. The Runes of Durability give me 20% boon duration and some nice extra bit of toughness and health, which is very important because as Reaper you do not have the blocks and evades that other classes have, so you really gotta rely on your 25k health with an extra 20k life force. And we also have a bit of toughness, not a lot, but at least it's something, and you can take a burst with this amount of toughness. So yeah, for the rest of the gear, just Marauder, Berserker, Marauder, Berserker. As for the weapons, they're all Marauder. On Greatsword, I take energy and strength. Energy, it's just an extra dodge. It can really help. It can save your life. That 50% endurance is really important. And then I take Sigil of Strength because in this build I have Blighter's Boon. So every time I gain a boon, I either get healed in Shroud or I gain life force when I'm not in Shroud. So getting as many boons is very important, and Sigil of Strength does just that with a 1 second cooldown on getting a might stack on a critical hit. As for Axe, I also have Sigil of Strength with Marauder stats, and on Warhorn I have Superior Sigil of Agility to gain quickness so that I can get a quick Axe 2 off, which can do a lot of damage in like 1 second if you have quickness. The accessories are well, this Marauder, Berserker. Here I took a little bit of toughness just to get this number up, but for the rest it's just power, precision, ferocity, and here again a little bit of toughness. So pretty well balanced stats. You really want to get a lot of health, because if you increase your health you also increase your life force pool, so that you can take more damage with your Shroud, and especially in World vs. World is very easy. Just kill some guards and you get a lot of life force, so that every time you go into a fight you're starting with at least this much health and this much life force, which it's really a big deal, because you're starting off with 45k HP and then you also have a bit of toughness, so you are just a little bit tanky and you can take a lot of damage. As for the traits, Spite, Soul Reaping, Reaper. Soul Reaping can be swapped out for Blood Magic. These are like the main two Power Reaper builds, especially in PvP. People take Blood Magic with Vampiric Rituals for the Wells, Vampiric Presence for more siphoning, and then Ritual of Life for rezzing allies. But for solo roaming, which is what I do most of, I take Soul Reaping, and then well, especially for Death Perception, because this is just such an important trait. Let's start with Spite. The first trait is going to give you might on your Reaper auto attack. As you can see, it's really nice. If you can spam this, I think the duration is 19 seconds. So just by spamming your auto attack, you can get up to 19 seconds of 19 stacks of might. Of course, these are just boons, so that means you're also going to get healed for every single one that you get. You also have Bitter Chill, which means that every chill that you apply is going to inflict vulnerability. Suffer inflicts chill, chill to the bone inflicts chill, chill of death inflicts chill, Reaper Shroud number 5 creates a pulsing chill field. Your fear inflicts chill. So there are lots of ways for you to apply chill and thus stack a lot of vulnerability, especially using your Reaper Shroud 5 and then your number 4 skill. That's going to create chilling bolts because it's a whirl finisher, and all those bolts are gonna inflict 3 stacks of vulnerability. So using that combo, you can easily get 25 stacks of vulnerability on the target, which means a lot of damage. Then we have Death's Embrace, more downstate damage and more vulnerability. Very nice, especially the downstate damage, because the downstate damage for Power Necromancer or Reaper or Scourge is just very insane. Then we have Chill of Death, a very important trait. This especially helps with thieves. As soon as they are under 50%, you have a chance to one-shot them, because I've seen this trait crit for 5,000-6,000 damage. Of course, it also removes boons and applies a 6-second chill, which is not to be overlooked. So this is definitely a very, very important trait. Then Siphon Power, which basically means more might, which means more healing and more life force. And then last but not least, in the Spite trait line, we have Spiteful Spirit. Strike around you when entering Shroud. You gain retaliation for every single enemy that you hit, and you can hit up to 5 targets. So that means you can get retaliation up to 5 times, and that means that you're gonna get healed for at least 1,000 every time you go into Shroud. Oh, by the way, for the Blighter's Boon tooltip, it says that the healing is 165, but actually the healing is around 192, I believe. So yeah, 192 times 5 times of retaliation means around 1000 healing just for going to Shroud and hitting 5 people with Spiteful Spirit. Of course, it also inflicts cripple and converts boons to conditions, and it crits because as soon as you go into Shroud, you get an additional 50% crit chance, so this skill will always critical hit for around 2, 3, or 4000 damage. So very nice. Close to Death is also a viable option, but I just prefer this because it works better with gaining boons and it heals you, and converting those boons to conditions can really turn a fight around sometimes. Then we go to Soul Reaping. Gluttony just gives you more life force. Then we have Speed of Shadows, which makes it so that every time you enter Shroud, you gain swiftness and remove those conditions. This is especially helpful versus Scourges and Thieves because they will apply a lot of chill and immobilize. That means that as soon as you go into Reaper Shroud, you can just get rid of those conditions and use Death's Charge to get away, so as to you're not stuck in place. Also, out of combat, use having this trait, and your Warhorn will make it so that you have permanent swiftness, which is also a nice little something. Then we have Lesser Spectral Armor, which is basically a free Spectral Armor. It gives you a lot of life force and also acts as a stun break. So yeah, just taking Soul Reaping makes it so that you have a lot more life force to spend, which is really nice. Then we have Vital Persistence, more vitality, reduces the recharge of Shroud skills. Wait, how much? So 24 seconds, 24 seconds, 20 seconds, and I think that was 4 seconds. Yeah, 4 seconds of Death's Charge, which is also a nice little something because you really want to be able to use Death Charge as much as possible because it's your only mobility tool outside of Fleshworm, and just being able to get in and out of fights is very important. So lowering the cooldown of Shroud number 2 is very, very important. Then we have Strength of Undeath, which basically means more life force and more damage, so it's a nice little bonus. And then of course Death Perception. Go into Shroud, you have 100% crit chance, which makes you a monster. You can kill people very quickly with this, and people often underestimate it. Then of course we have Reaper. First trait is Augury of Death. I use a shout skill for my heal and a shout skill for my elite skill, so lowering the cooldowns of those is very, very nice. I also use Suffer, which transfers a condition and chills them. So yeah, having lower cooldowns and having that life siphon is just a nice little extra. You could also use Chilling Nova, but I just prefer the lower cooldowns on the shout skills, especially since it's your heal skill and your elite skill. Then Shivers of Dread, it's just you chill people whenever you fear them, and because you chill them, you also inflict vulnerability. And then we have Chilling Victory, another key trait in this build. You are Reaper, so of course the enemies are going to be chilled most of the time. Therefore, having this trait is very, very important because it will give you might and life force every time you hit a chilled enemy. And of course, because you get might, a boon, you also get an extra % of life force. So outside of Shroud, this is going to give you 2% life force pretty much every second as long as you hit them. So it's a very, very good trait. Then we have Cold Shoulders. You deal more damage to chilled foes, which they're gonna be most of the time if you're doing things correctly. And then chills also last longer, which is a nice little something. And then Blighter's Boon. This is the key trait of this build. This is where I build most of the build around. As I said before, the tooltip is wrong. The healing is actually around 192 every time you gain a boon in Shroud. And because of this trait, I picked my food and utility. The food is the fried golden dumplings. These give you 100% concentration, 100 concentration, but that is, I mean, it's a nice little bonus, but it's not the reason why I'm taking them. I'm taking them for the 33% chance for might on critical hit. These are, of course, this is of course not the only food that will give you might on critical hit, but this is the only food that does not have an internal cooldown on it. That means that I can trigger, I can proc this food, or I can get that might from this food multiple times from AoE attack. So let's say I use Chill to the Bone and it critical hits on 5 targets. That means I could potentially get 5 stacks of might just from my food alone. If I were to use another food that would give you might on critical hit, those all have internal cooldowns, so I could only get a maximum of 1 stack of might from using an AoE skill, even if it crits multiple times on multiple enemies. So that is why this skill is, this food is the best for this build. And then as for my utility, I just take Superior Sharpening Stones, which add an extra 130 power to the build, I believe. Then we go to the utility skills. As I talked about before, we have Your Soul Is Mine. This is a very good heal skill. It has a low cooldown. If you hit 5 targets, I believe the cooldown is around 14 seconds because of Augury of Death, which reduces the recharge per foe hit. Oh, oops. It also gives you life force. You can use it out of combat to gain free life force, and yeah, the healing is not bad, especially on the cooldown that it is. So that is why I picked this skill. But if you're going up against condition using opponents, you can definitely use Consume Conditions. It's also a great skill, but for most fights, and especially versus just normal power using opponents, you want to use Your Soul Is Mine. Most of the time I take Spectral Armor, which is 10 seconds of protection and just life force whenever you take damage. It's also a stun breaker, but yeah, it's a good skill, but there are many good alternatives that you can take as Reaper. You can take Will of Power if you are versus condition using opponents. It pulses might and converts conditions to boons. This is also very nice for group roaming. I also take Plague Signet sometimes to transfer conditions back to targets. You can take Spectral Walk for jukes. You can take Spectral Grasp for, I mean, just for the lols. I mean, this is a pretty funny skill, especially versus thieves. And then, yeah, Nothing Can Save You versus Guardians. Rise just for less damage. This is another stun break, which gives you might, also a good alternative. But yeah, most of the time I take Spectral Armor. Then I use Fleshworm. This, I don't see a lot of people using Fleshworm actually, but I really like this skill. It's just a nice teleport. It's pretty much Blink, but with a cast time, and it gives you life force. But yeah, it's just nice to have some vertical mobility. You can use it to teleport up ledges or like cliffs, and well, the cooldown isn't too bad, 32 seconds. So that is why I take this skill. I never swap it out because I think the vertical mobility is very important, and you can also use it to juke people. And then last but not least, we have Suffer. I do not ever swap out this skill because it's just a low cooldown shout, which damages, which transfers conditions, which chills them, which also applies vulnerability because of that. It also life siphons, so you get healed a bit. and it's just a very nice skill. Again, if you hit all 5 targets, the cooldown is only 14 seconds, I believe, so that is very nice. And then as for the elite skill, Chill to the Bone, of course, 2-second stun, huge damage. I've seen this crit for 5,000 damage, and of course stability for 13 seconds and even more chill. So yeah, I never take anything else. Maybe Lich Form if I want, if just for fun. But yeah, if I'm taking things seriously, Chill to the Bone is definitely the best elite skill to take. Then the weapon skills, I like to take Greatsword and Axe Warhorn. Greatsword can also be swapped out for Staff. I prefer to play with Staff if I'm versus like good, better opponents, because better opponents will know how to dodge the Greatsword skills. They're very telegraphed, and yeah, versus good opponents, you don't want to get close to them. You just want to kite around. You want to drop your marks behind them. You want to stay kiting all the time, and then as soon as they get close to you or you see an opening, you can just use your shroud skills and try to kill them. But for regular roaming, because let's be honest, most people that roam aren't that good, Greatsword is the way to go. Huge damage, lots of area control, especially with Nightfall, and the Grasping Darkness that can really turn fights around. The auto attack of Greatsword is also very strong. Damage 1000, 1300, and 1700. The last hit. Wait, let me find. It's too far away. The last hit of this auto attack, I've seen this crit for up to 6-7k. Just on regular players, it's pretty insane. It also inflicts chill, which is very nice, and gives you 5% life force if you hit the last one. So the auto attack is pretty good, but unfortunately you're not going to be hitting it most of the time. Same for Gravedigger. I mean, damage 3000, very nice, but the chance that you're gonna hit this hugely telegraphed skill is very low. So yeah, maybe you can set it up with Chill to the Bone, Reaper Shroud 5, or your pool, but most of the time people will stun break and dodge, so do not count on this skill. Then we have Death Spiral. It also does nice damage, gives you 12% life force if you hit everything. Also applies vulnerability, and yeah, if you hit this on multiple targets, like the cap is 3, so if you hit this on 3 targets, you could get 36% life force just from one single skill. So it can really pay to hit this skill every now and then. Then we have Nightfall, definitely the most important skill of Greatsword. It's great for area control, does some nice damage, also converts boons to conditions, applies blindness and cripple, and is a dark combo field, and it can get pretty large. It's great for just dropping it so that people will not come to you. It's just a bit of area control, and especially the boons converted to conditions is very nice. And then last we have Grasping Darkness, the pool. You can actually use the skill behind walls. For example, if we go over here, if I'm standing over here and there's an enemy standing over here, you can just use the number 5 skill, and people that would stand there would also get pulled to you, so you don't even need to have line of sight for the skill. I've also seen this skill hit for like 3 or 4,000 damage, and under some weird circumstances, this skill can also hit twice. If they get pulled to you faster than the claws of darkness come back to you, you can actually hit this skill twice. I've one-shot thieves with this because I tried to pull them, I would hit them, I would proc Chill of Death, and then I would hit them again with this skill, and yeah, it would just up to 14,000 damage just in one skill because it hit twice. So that's pretty good. Then we go to Axe. It's a nice auto attack, just applies some vulnerability. You can just use it when people are trying to run away from you. Definitely the most important skill is Ghastly Claws. This does even more damage than the Gravedigger, and does even more damage if they have vulnerability stacks on them. I've seen this hit for 16,000 on squishies, so definitely a very good skill, and it also has a range of 900, so you don't even need to come close to people. Then we have Unholy Feast, which will convert boons the conditions again, cripple them, and if you hit people under 25% health, they will get hit again by the Unholy Burst, which basically means you hit them twice with the same skill. So this can also do 6k damage if you hit them under 25% and thus trigger the second part of the skill. And then I use Warhorn. Other alternatives would be Focus. Focus isn't like too bad. Do I even have a Focus? I don't even have a Focus. Oops. Focus isn't too bad either, but I just prefer Warhorn for the swiftness. It cripples, it gives you more life force, and it also has an unblockable daze, which is great versus Guardians and any warrior, to be honest. So that sums up the weapon skills, and then, well, how to play Reaper. Well, Reaper is obviously not a type of warrior. Warrior has stances, warrior has blocks, warriors have invulnerabilities. Wait, do they? No, they don't have they don't have invulnerability, but what I'm trying to say is you're gonna get hit by everything unless you dodge it, and you don't have a lot of dodges. So what you want to do is you definitely do not want to fight in open space. You want to get on things, you want to jump around, you want to use line of sight, you want to use skills like that, and then hit them like this. You always want to be on the outskirts of the fight, never in the middle. The only time you want to be in the middle of the fight is if you have Reaper Shroud up and you can just get in, go stability, and go ham. But other than that, you want to just kite around and just poke a little with Axe, maybe drop a field with Greatsword, but then get out again, because any player will know to focus either the Necro or Reaper or Scourge, because they do a lot of damage, but they're also pretty easy to kill if you get a good immobilize or stun on them. So always kite, always run around, and what most people don't realize is that the mobility is pretty good, especially with Worm. You want to use Worm as creatively as possible, just to get up high places or to escape. But especially using number 2, which has a 4-second cooldown, you want to use that as often as possible to get into fights, to get out of fights, to run away. That Death Charge is definitely one of the most important skills of this build, because it's one of the only forms of mobility. So you always want to, if you're going into a fight, let me get some life first. Okay, so if you're going into a fight and you see an opening, you can see that you can burst them down, you just go in number 2, you drop most of your skills if they don't dodge, and as soon as you're done, you just want to get out again, because a Reaper that is not in Reaper Shroud is very squishy and is a lot less dangerous. So yeah, just keep that in the back of your head. Always stay on the outskirts, always be kiting, always make sure you have area control so that they don't come near you. And what I do, I always, before going into the fight, let's say for example here are some people fighting and I just drop all my skills, and let's say they turn on me and get a stun or immobilize, I always have the Worm to get out, and then I'm gone and they probably will not get back to me in time. So always have that Worm before going into a fight. Then some last tips and tricks. Well, most people don't know on Greatsword, the number 5 skill, Grasping Darkness, you do not need to cast the whole skill. You can just cast the first quarter of the cast time, and then you can use your Stow Weapon Keybind to cancel the cast, so that the whole skill goes off, but you just have an extra half second to cast your skills. So usually what you do is you cast number 5 and then you cast number 2, but because the pool takes so long, they usually have time to dodge before you can hit your Gravedigger. So the only way to make that combo work is to use number 5, cancel the cast, but the skill will still go off, and then immediately after start using Gravedigger. So this is what it would look like. Take notice at the cast time bar. as you can see, I just stow weaponed the cast time and the skill still went off, and I got a Gravedigger in before they could probably dodge, but I don't have anyone here now. So that's the first tip. Second, it's very important to get your Frost Aura, which is you get by number 5ing and then number 2ing. Frost Aura applies chill to foes that strike you. That means that they will get chilled and thus also get vulnerability. And the good thing about Frost Aura is that it also gives you 10% damage reduction just for free. So it's important to cast your Death Charge in your Ice Field. Then for those who don't know, the stow weapon. Okay, wait, where's the stow weapon? Oh, here it is. Stow / draw weapons. I have it keybinded to my tab. This is just very important. You can use this to cancel the casts of your skills. For example, if there is a Scourge here and he's auto attacking me and I use my chill to the bone and he starts dodging, I can just use my tab for canceling the cast, and then I still have my elite skill. The same goes for any skill. You can just start the cast and then cancel it, and it will not go on full cooldown, which can be very useful, especially with your elite skill or Gravedigger, to bait out dodges so that they have less dodges. So well, yeah, that. And then another thing, this build really, it doesn't need a lot of line of sight. You can always kite around objects or walls. So like I showed before, you can just stand. Oh, can I just stand here? Hello. Yeah, you can just stand here, and anyone that was standing here would get pulled. Same for all your shouts. Oh my god. Same for all your shouts. Anyone standing here is gonna get stunned. Also, Axe 3, that can go through walls. Your heal skill can also go through walls. And when you enter Shroud, when you enter Shroud, the Spiteful Spirit attack will also go through walls. So that. Also, because it's a world versus world build, you can get a lot of life force outside of combat. You just want to spam your heal skill, and every time you see an animal or just a guard, you can use Ghastly Claws, Gravedigger, and just kill them and get that life force, so that when you get to a next fight versus an enemy, you have a full life force bar to spend, which can be very important, so that in total you would have around 45k HP. So that sums up this guide. I've said all that I've wanted to say. It's just important to kite around, use the terrain, as some of you have probably seen in some of my other videos. Jump on objects, hide behind walls, and that will make it a lot harder for them to kill you. So good luck with the build. I hope you guys learned something from this. If anyone still has any questions, this is my in-game account name that you can whisper or email, or I mean not email. Don't email me. Just send me your regular mail. And you can also drop a comment in the comment section below if you have any questions. Thank you guys very much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe. Almost to 10,000 subscribers. Please help me get there. And well, have a good day, everyone. All right, bye.